Hello and welcome to Next Steps to Success. I'm your host, Brenda Bertrand. Welcome to another week. So last week we talked about pursuing your dreams, but this time we are talking about how to deal with adversity. I know you're going through some tough times out there, whether it's with the mortgage crisis or with job loss or with personal, family, and relational issues. So today's Next Step to Success, we have a guest who's going to help us to really navigate how to go through tough and adverse times. And so I have with me Jack Dunlap. He is the director of the Jobs Ministry at the Falls Church, and he's also the president of Dunlap and Associates. And he has a story to tell and some lessons that he's learned. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Well, you look bright and shiny, Jack, so I'm not sure that I'm believing that you know anything about adverse times, that you've ever had a bad day in your life. Tell me a little bit about what you know about adversity.
Well, appearances can be somewhat deceiving, as you know. I probably look substantially different now than I did then, although probably a lot older than I did then.
Okay.
Adversity sometimes can build us and make us stronger, but sometimes it puts a little age on us as well.
Yeah.
But yes, I did have some adversity. I refer to myself as a recovering attorney. I had a great career as a lawyer and a judge.
Yeah.
Got a little tap on the shoulder. Yeah, I'll be right with you. Back to my business as usual. Another tap on the shoulder. Yeah, I'll be right with you.
Yeah.
Well, you can only do that so many times.
Before that tap turns into a shove and you're on your face somewhere, right?
Yeah, or if in my case, more than a shove, was more like a 2x4.
Oh, okay.
So 2x4 in my case, unfortunately, was my wife left. And so going through times of divorce, and I'm sure that there are many here that can relate with that difficulty, it is a time, and it gives us actually some choices at that point. I happen to have been going through a number of choices, and as I say, being a lawyer and a judge especially, of course, I didn't have any problem with a swollen head.
Right.
No arrogance on my part.
No ego in your part at all.
Oh, Your Honor, how are you today? Oh, well, I'm fine, counselor. Thank you very much. So I really, I have to admit that I really did have a problem with arrogance. Not that it's completely gone, but at least more of a handle on it. But part of the process of having hard times is we have the opportunity to look at ourselves and see who we really are. And for me, that was not an easy project. I think for most people that's probably true. It's difficult to accept who we really are. So one of the things that happened to me was that I discovered what humility was. And for me, humility is being able to see yourself as God sees you. And in the same respect, being able to love yourself as God loves you, unconditionally for exactly who you are.
Right.
Because for a long time, I really didn't believe that I was good enough, and that led to all kinds of problems, part of the reason why my wife left. So going through the process, we get to look at ourselves, and we get to make that choice. Are we willing to see who we really are, and are we willing to decide what it is that we really want to do?
Right.
And I went through a very difficult decision-making process of deciding and recognizing that my gift was teaching. I was a good lawyer, probably a better judge, but my gift was in teaching. Now, the arrogance part of it comes in with things like, I remember very clearly looking out my window one day and thinking, you know, my wife is married to the attorney and to the judge. I don't know if she's going to like this idea of being married to the teacher. And I actually went through this kind of internal conversation. What do you do? I'm a lawyer. Oh. What do you do? I'm a judge. Oh. What do you do? I'm a teacher. Oh.
Yeah.
And I had to struggle with that. Even though I knew that teaching was what I was made to do, I really didn't want to let go of being a lawyer.
Being identified with that.
That's right. And so part of it is we get to make the choice to look at ourselves as we really are, for who we are, not what we are, but who we are. And facing adversity, that's one of the big issues, is to get to know who we are. And if we know solidly who we are, if we have, for me, that's a spiritual basis. If we have that spiritual grounding, we know who we are, we accept who we are, we're able to love ourselves for who we are. Whether we've lost everything, whether we've crashed and burned, we can still love ourselves, not in a narcissistic sort of way, but in a way that we accept who we are.
And you know, there are a lot of people who right now are losing their homes, or they are without jobs, and their identity is, I'm in foreclosure, or I am homeless, or I am jobless, or, you know, and so the identity is really attached to things or titles or whatever, and making that choice to say, I'm more than a title or a job, and there's more to me than that, and I really want certain things, really is a huge self-awareness process that can be very challenging for some people when they're in lack. How do you encourage people who are in that process and they're still in the hurdle where you were like wanting to be a judge versus a teacher? How do you encourage them to really sort through some of the identity crisis versus some of the reality?
Part of that, again, is to get that spiritual grounding, to make sure that we know who we are spiritually and be able to accept ourselves. I did come to the realization that my wanting to be the judge, wanting to be the lawyer, all that sort of thing, it was just kind of vanity. You know, that's all. I really liked people referring to me as the judge or the lawyer and things like that. And ironically, they still do periodically, and I haven't practiced law for over 20 years. So it's interesting in that regard. I work with a lot of people in the jobs ministry. Just to give you one example, one of the brightest people that I've worked with, I really consider him to be a genius. He's creative, he does branding, marketing, all kinds of graphic designs and all kinds of things like that. And yet, he's decided that it's been very difficult for him. He needed to make money, and he's walking dogs. He's actually a pet sitter. He's a great pet sitter. He's fantastic because he's willing to accept that as something that bridges him. That's right, bridges him from getting from where he is now to where he will be again. And there's no question in my mind. He is brilliant. He will once again be up and doing the things. This economy is very difficult. And there are so many people out there that are so gifted. They are so good. And one of the things that I would want your listeners all to know is don't lose heart. You may not get a job you probably won't get a job in 6 months, or well, in 2 months or 3 months. Very likely not in 6 months, perhaps not even a year. I know very talented people that have been unemployed for 2 years, 3 years.
That's so true.
But keep the faith. You've got to keep going. You can't lose the sight of who you are. That gets back to the spiritual grounding of knowing who you are, knowing that you are going to make it through, knowing that there's a plan for your life, and that's a good plan.
And so the first step is that self-awareness and really coming to reality and embracing the facts as well as the potential that you're not always going to be there. And then also there's making a choice and moving out of that place of I'm stuck and this is pretty bad and this is who I am, good and not so good, but I do need to make a choice.
That's right.
What are your thoughts on decision making in the midst of adversity? Hard, easy?
Decision making is extra hard in adversity.
Extra hard all the time, isn't it? But especially in adversity, it could be definitely trying.
Because then there are all those other things. What do I do to eat? What do I do to, what happens if I lose my home? What happens if and I work with people all the time who have lost everything. I will admit that when my wife left, I felt like I lost everything. And I didn't really appreciate many of the things that I had. I didn't appreciate them before that. And I didn't appreciate them after that as well. So just recognizing what it is that we have, being able to appreciate those things that we have is very important.
So you've been through adversity. You're helping people at the Jobs Ministry to really be able to communicate to others as well as on paper who they are, applying for jobs, starting new lives and careers or transition into other careers. And there is a certain aspect of taking care of yourself that comes into play with all of this, that even while you're struggling, you still have to maintain a sense of self-care. What are your thoughts on taking care of yourself while you're possibly taking care of others or trying to solve really challenging problems?
The first thing is that it is one of the toughest things to do. There are always other things that are more important. And for many of us, we grow up thinking that everybody else is more important than I am. Taking care of myself is the least important thing of all. So this is, ironically, the time when we really need to take care of ourselves. We need to watch our diets. We need to get exercise. We need, as I said before, emphasize, to take care of ourselves spiritually. You got a mind, you got a body, and you got a spirit. You need to take care of all of those. whatever that means. And that will mean different things to different people. Exercise, extremely important.
Very important.
I see a lot of people who get very flabby, both in all respects, not just physically, during very difficult times. And it's hard, but you gotta force yourself to continue to take care of yourself. Again, eating right, getting rest, getting relaxation. And another aspect is to take care of ourselves professionally. I talk to people frequently who have been out of work for a year and a half, and I say, well, what have you been reading while you've been out of work? I don't know, job ads. So no, I mean, what kind of books? Have you been reading books? Have you been reading magazines? In your professional field, have you been reading the journals? No. Sort of like, well, why should I?
Right.
You gotta read, you gotta keep up. One of the most important things to do is to keep up in your field. Take care of yourself, number one, and number two, keep up. Take care of yourself professionally as well.
But you know what I'm hearing people say is, I'm in survival mode and I just don't have time to sleep or eat or exercise or get out because I'm just trying to make it from day to day. Have you heard that? What are you saying to people? You say, just still read, you still take some exercise. I mean, there's a necessity because they won't have enough reserves to keep going. So adversity takes energy.
Yes.
And if you don't have it, then you do struggle even more and could possibly lose steam if you don't have those resources. So that's what I think should be a motivator for that.
Right. And people do lose steam. What you said is so important. If they just keep doing the same things over and over again, they do lose steam. One of the things that I keep telling people is if you're looking for a job and what you're doing is not working, then change what you're doing. Don't keep doing the same thing. Yogi Berra said, if you keep doing what you've always done, you always get what you always got.
That's right.
And so we need to be able to switch our approach if our approach is not working.
Okay. So become self-aware, make some good choices, definitely start to take care of yourself. What's something else that you tell people during their time of adversity? What else should they be thinking about or doing?
One of the other things, and I brushed on it lightly before, was the idea of having a grateful heart, being able to appreciate the things that we have. And it starts with us, being able to appreciate who we are, being able to appreciate our own gifts, our own talents, and recognize that they're important. One of the problems with gifts and talents is that if I were to ask you what a particular gift or talent was, you probably would say, well, I don't know, I'm not sure. If you're fortunate enough to look at them and know what they are, then I would ask you some questions about why you know that. You'd say, well, I'm pretty good at it, it's easy for me to do, I can do it without a lot of time, I can do it quickly. But if I asked you how you did it, you'd probably say, what? If I asked you about your gift, how do you do that? What would you say?
It just comes natural. I just do it. It's like second nature,
Yeah, I don't know. I just do it. I just do it. Okay, so that's an important part of a gift, is that we just do it. And the other important part is your gift very important? I mean, is it real significant? I mean, considering how easy it is for you to do.
You probably won't think that it's as significant.
No.
Yeah, you underestimate the...
That's right. People say, well, it's so easy for me to do, it obviously can't be important. And so it's really important that people look at their gifts, and when they recognize a gift, one of the things they will probably be thinking about is that, oh, well, it's probably not very important because it's easy for me to do, and if it's easy for me to do, then obviously it can't be very important. So to accept and appreciate, again, getting back to the appreciation, appreciate our own gifts and talents and how important they are.
And I've heard someone say that it's good when you wake up in the morning or when you go to bed at night to just write a list of things that you're grateful for throughout the entire day. And some people who are going through adversity, it's really hard to take the focus off of all of the bad things that are happening. My mortgage is behind and I don't have a job, but really they still have a roof over their heads or they still have a caring family. So being able to articulate that there are good things happening in the midst of the adversity is also powerful. Like you said, acknowledging what is good, even though it comes very natural, or, you know, of course I have a roof over my head. Well, some people don't.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that is a big problem that some people don't.
Yeah.
You know, there was a fellow by the name of Viktor Frankl, who was a Jewish psychiatrist confined in the prison camps. And in one of his lesser-known works, I think it was actually an interview, He said he was walking back from the fields with a crippled old man, and the old man said, "Victor, stop." And Victor said, "What is it? What's wrong?" And the old man said, "Nothing." And the old man, then he said, "Just look at that sunset. That's the most beautiful sunset that we've had since we've been here in Auschwitz." Now, can you imagine finding beauty in the worst of human conditions like that? And for us, appreciation needs to even go beyond just appreciating what it is, but being able to recognize joy. Joy in the worst of human conditions. And if they could recognize that joy in the worst of human conditions, surely we can find joy in our daily lives. So I would encourage people, in addition to writing down the things they appreciate, which is a great idea, write down the things that bring them joy. And then to identify, how often do they experience joy? Once a year, once a month, once a week, once a day? And I would urge people to find something that they can really, truly experience joy with at least once a day. And that will help.
I love the analogy and the picture of Viktor Frankl and the old man, because it's finding beauty in adversity. And I think that's what you're talking about, is while you were going through divorce or going through hard times in your own personal life, that there was still beauty in the ashes. And we can always find that, but you have to look for it, you know. So that's really powerful.
And exactly what you're saying is what's so significant for me. I would describe that as the worst time in my life. I would also describe that as the best time in my life. Because through all the crashing and burning, through all the pain and through all the agony, today I could not be the person that I am. I could not be doing the things that I'm doing. I could not have the wonderful life that I have today without having gone through all of that. If I hadn't gone through that, I'd probably still be a lawyer, and I'd probably be making money, and I'd probably be turning a crank. But you know what? I don't think my life would have the joy that my life has right now.
So tell me a little bit about your life now and the joy that you have in bringing others through transition, through what could be a career hardship. What are some of the work that you're doing, and how can people get involved in that?
Okay. Well, I have, as you know, the two areas. One is to work with people who are out of work, and these two kind of positions kind of merge sometimes. Helping them get into work, helping them identify the things that they really can do, the things they can love to do, and also helping them identify what it is they need to do in order to take those steps. And I do that a lot through my Dunlap and Associates work. One of the things, just to give you an example, is that I talk to people about grudges. And I explain to people what grudges are, basically a poison that we give ourselves to kill somebody else.
Right. I'm drinking it. I hope you get a taste of it.
That's right.
Okay.
Very good, very good. And I hope you suffer for it.
I
really
suffer
hope
while
you
I'm
suffer
dying,
for it.
right?
That's right. But who's the one that suffers? I'm the one that's suffering. And we went through this, and I do it in a kind of a humorous sort of way. I have a little Nemish sort of looking thing that's a grudge, and I ask people what it is and so forth. And I help people understand what grudges are, and that they really do hurt us, not the other person. And that by simply forgiving, that's basically setting down the grudge and walking away from it, leaving the pain and the agony of the grudge behind. Forget about the other person. Forget about whether it is good or bad for them. Just look at it from yourself, you know, from your self point of view, and say, is this good for me to hold this grudge or not? Went through that whole thing, and after the class was over, a woman asked me to come over to pick up the evaluation. I said, well, you can leave it on the table. And she said, no, I want to give it to you personally. So I said, okay. I went over and I picked it up. And then she said, no, I want you to read it now. So, oh, okay. So I read it, and she said some nice things about the course. And then I read it. She said, today I gave up my ugly grudge. She had tears streaming down her eyes. She looked at me and she said, this has changed my life. And so really that's the kind of the foundation of what it was that I went from with being the lawyer and the judge to being able to help people in things like that. And I will tell you that that experience alone, there was no experience that I had in the law, and I had a lot of good experiences in the law. None of them came close to that.
It's a transformed life, and you're able to use your gift as a teacher to really impart to people what, I think there are so many of my viewers who are in that gap. They're in that limbo, that in between where they're standing where they are, and they see off in the distance where they want to be, and they're just languishing in this limbo. Right. And part of it is they're either blaming someone else for something that hasn't happened or didn't happen or could have happened, or they are holding on to some things that, oh, I shouldn't have bought that house in 2005, or else I wouldn't be in this mess today, or I shouldn't have done this. And there's a lot of shouldas, coulda, would, didn't, and it's painful for them. Oh, yeah. And to have someone like you who is skilled and passionate about taking people from that place of limbo and guiding them through a process or training to move out of that, it's an invaluable gift. So thank you for sharing that. And then also for being true to that, because you could still be judged somebody or the other. Oh yeah. Would have sounded impressive, but I know how many transformed lives did you have with that? So yeah, so the jobs ministry. Can I walk in? Can someone else walk in? What's the
It's open. We have very, very narrow limitations on who we accept.
Okay, what are
Only
those?
People who are unemployed, underemployed, unhappily employed, uncertainly employed, or people who are just trying to figure out what they want to do when they grow up.
I think that's.
Now, let's see. 99.9% of the population.
Okay.
So those are the only people we help.
So yeah, so all of our folks
everybody
should be able to come in.
That's right. There's no cost.
All
of our services are free. We have a series of classes that we put on a semester in the fall, winter, and spring. They're 8 weeks long, Tuesday evenings from 7 until 8:30. I'm sorry, 7 until 9:30. And we try very hard to begin on time, end on time, so that people can really count on it and they don't feel like they're having their time stretched. And we have classes, and some of the classes are more specific about the talents or the skills that are needed for the job search, like writing resumes, doing interviews, networking, things like that. Some of them are more spiritual, finding God's plan for your life, identifying gifts and talents, and of course my class I teach on stress management, dealing in having a winning attitude in difficult times and things of that nature. And then we have small groups, accountability groups that go with those as well. We also have a number of other classes, and in addition to that, we have the Career Resource Center, which is in Falls Church, and that's at 100A East Fairfax Street in the city of Falls Church. And our number is 703-536-9068.
Tell us that number again.
703-536-9068. And so people are more than welcome to give us a call. We help people. We do have some career counseling, help people with their resumes, how to write their resumes and so forth.
And it's a free service.
It's all free.
That is sponsored by the charitable givings of others, so that people can walk in, get help that they need with adding no extra stress to them. They can walk out with some of these tools, get rid of some of these grudges, as well as prepare themselves better for the workforce. Now, the workforce is pretty challenging right now. Are you finding, are you hearing back from your clients about success in the work field? What are you hearing?
We'd like to hear a lot more successes. We invite our people, whenever they get a job, we say, come back and do a victory lap. We really like it when people do their victory laps. So we'd really like to have more victory laps. So people are getting jobs now, so it's better than it was. There was a period when it was very, very tough for anybody to get jobs. Now at least some people are getting jobs.
Yeah, definitely.
But there are still a lot of people that are not. And there are a lot of people who have just kind of given up. You know, every once in a while we'll hear on the news about people who have kind of given up and their numbers aren't really being counted. And I really encourage all of your listeners that if they are one of those people who has given up, don't give up. Come back. You know, come see us. We'll help you get started. We'll help you with strategies. One of the things that we talk about that a lot of other organizations don't talk about, and that is build a strategy. And the strategy may be like the fellow that walks the dogs, and that was a strategy. You know, that wasn't because he wanted his life work to be walking dogs. That was a strategy to get him to the point where he could once again start his work in his chosen field. Next step, exactly as you say. And what happens sometimes is people don't take that next step. They don't get a job that just tides them over, that binds them. And so then they sit back and they just throw up their hands and sit in despair.
And I'm glad that you show that story as an illustration, because people are used to seeing on TV the big leaps, you know, the big career changes and the big, huge leaps. And really in day-to-day life, especially in adversity, people aren't making those big leaps, and especially in this economy. People are making those small steps that ultimately, you know, add up to a big leap. But in his case, it's a lot of humility that it takes to do that, but it's also the reality and the self-awareness that this is where I am right now. I need to generate income. How can I do that? I'll do this. And I think that's powerful.
There are a number of people, and we're helping people get in as interns. You know, you usually think of interns being high school, college, and so forth and so on, but there are federal government internships that people can get into that start at GS7, go 7, 9, 11, things like that. So I encourage people to look. There are options available, and volunteering. People can volunteer, even volunteering in an organization, not even in a formal intern program, but to go in, volunteer, find a place where they'd like to work, and what a great way to get to know the organization, and perhaps more importantly, have the organization get to know you.
Yes. So there are people who are going through adversity today, and they are watching this show right now. And they know this show is Next Steps to Success. We give you the next step on your journey to where you believe success is for you. What is the next step you would advise for that person who's looking right now and saying, I'm ready to do what you told me to do, but just give me one next step that will get me from here to there?
Okay. I would say the first step is assessment.
Yeah.
Get to know who you are, what your strengths are, what are your weaknesses as well. And a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to take care of their weaknesses. My advice is spend most of your time on your strengths. Yeah, a little bit of time, if you got some weaknesses, fine. Spend a little bit of time trying to take care of those, but focus on your strengths. Those are what are going to get you ahead. So assess yourself, figure out what are your strengths, what can you really offer, what are your gifts, your talents, and then find a field in which you can launch yourself. You may have to reinvent yourself. If you can get back into what you were doing, fine, but keep an open mind, have an open heart, be ready and able to take advantage of whatever opportunity it is that comes along.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I want to tell you, in addition to that self-assessment, that could be a great next step. Why don't you call the Jobs Ministry Center and get in touch with them at 703-536-9068. Get in touch with Jack Dunlap and his career counselors who are standing by, ready to help you in your next step to success. I'm Brenda Bertrand. Thank you, Jack, for being here. And whatever you're going through today, I want to encourage you, the end is not yet. The best days are yet to come. Take care, and I'll see you next time.